I'd like to welcome Jenny Levison to come and share her story with you now.
Hi. Thank you everyone for coming today. I had to share a story with you that I was driving here, talking on the phone with one of my older brothers, and they asked me what I was doing this afternoon, and I told them I was coming to Georgia Tech to speak at the School of Business, and there was a silence, and then he hysterically started laughing at me because he just couldn't believe his baby sister, who was bouncing checks in high school and college, was coming to speak to a group of students about how to be an entrepreneur. So that was going to be my intro, I decided, for today. But what I really want to start with is talking to you about is where I was when I was your age. How many people in this room, are you all in your early 20s? Raise your hand, early 20s, 20s? Yes, so when I was 22, very similar to where you are now, I was living in New York City. I had just graduated from Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, their School of Drama, which at the time was like an incredible school, probably one of the top 3 schools for drama in the country. And I had just realized I had my life planned out in front of me. I was going to be a serious theater actor. I'd known I'd loved theater probably since the age of 14 when I played a horse in the high school production of Equus at my school. And I had just taken off from there. So I went to Carnegie Mellon, I graduated, I moved to New York City with the plan that this was my career path. And like all good actors that move to a big city after they graduate from college, I also had a little side gig in the restaurant business, because no matter, what I learned later is no matter how much work you get in the industry, that you are always looking for your next job. And I knew that I needed to pay my bills living in New York City, so I always worked in a restaurant. So I was living in New York City. A long time ago, I was a working actor. I worked on several different soap operas. My time in New York City, you would recognize me then. I had much larger hair, like out to here. But on the side, since you're always looking for your next job, I always had this backup restaurant gig. And I started as a waitress, a couple nights a week when I wasn't working on soap operas or doing theater. And I started to realize that what was missing in my life as this professional actor was this whole sense of community, the sense of celebration. I loved being in the restaurant because it's centered around gathering around the table and about celebration, about eating. And I felt in my world as an actor and out there trying to make it as a performer, it was very competitive in this whole different way. And I just didn't feel this sense of community that I felt inside the restaurant. So I lived for several years in New York. Then I moved to LA to pursue some dreams out there. And then I had come home to Atlanta one summer, and it was 22 years ago. And I was doing a play here in Atlanta. And I decided, I had some spare time, so I met this woman who was a caterer, and she needed some help. And so I was doing the play at the night, and I was helping her during the day, and I was just enjoying, I love doing live theater. That's my love. The film and TV I never really could connect to, so I was trying to find a way, how can I do what I love that pays nothing, by the way, and also survive. So I was doing this play at night and helping this woman with catering and having this great time. And then one day she looked at me and said, "Look, I know you're not planning on staying in Atlanta, but I have this little shop, and part of my lease is I need to have a retail place in front. I need to have a little restaurant or something, and I just want to be a caterer." And something in that instant that she said that to me, I just stopped and I thought, okay, I have literally no business experience at all. I don't know anything really. I know how to cook, a little bit. I love to cook for my friends and family. I've grown up entertaining and doing things like that. I don't know anything about purchasing food. I don't know anything about how to pay taxes for that kind of business or what business involves. And that, which I've come to know years later, is my definite number one thing that I learned. When I think that I have no experience, that is when I say, I'll do it. So I looked at her And I was like, absolutely, let's do this. And I ended up not leaving Atlanta. I moved back into my parents' basement at the time. And I opened this little place in Buckhead. And it wasn't even called Super Jenny back then. It was I made up a name, Jenny's Marketplace. I got a friend of mine that is still my friend to this day. And I said, look, I need some help. I have no idea what I'm doing. You're going to come and work for me. And it was just the two of us back in the beginning. And we would get up at 4 in the morning, get to our space. Oh, by the way, I didn't know how to buy groceries or anything. I was like, do I go to Kroger and buy like all the food I need to make lunch today? Someone, taught me how to go to the farmer's market, and we would go and shop. We would cook whatever we felt like, and then we would just sort of open our doors for business and see who showed up. And the first day was awesome. We made $250, which I think mostly was my family that showed up for lunch. But they got a great meal. It's such a bargain. And back then, I'm pretty sure that was a long time ago, our big sandwich seller was the turkey Caesar wrap, and it was $4. And just so you know, that inflation, the same sandwich today is $7. So I was really thought I was doing great back then. And this is how we started. And I just started learning a little bit by little bit every day, a little more about what I was doing. And this went along great. I had, I was also doing theater here in Atlanta, so I could do that at night. I went from having the one employee, so we started back at one employee, and then I grew within 3 years. I think we went to 4 employees, and we went from making that $250 a day to about $3,000 a day, just completely through grassroots, handing out flyers in the neighborhood, nothing special. Also, I got to move into this space. It was a restaurant already, it had the kitchen in it, so I just slapped some paint on the front side of her catering kitchen and some family pictures. That was our decor, and we had ourselves a restaurant for 3 years. A P.S. also in that time, I met this very handsome French man named Jean-Jacques. How can you not fall in love with someone named Jean-Jacques? And he wooed me with his, French cooking and sauces. And then I got married. And then one day I said, you know what? I don't really know how to cook. I want to learn how to cook, but I don't want to go to culinary school. So I had this great idea that we were going to leave. We were going to shut down. I finally was making a living, making my parents happy. I could support myself. And I had this idea that I wanted to travel around the world. And I looked at my new husband, and I was like, I have this great idea. We should take every dime that we got for our wedding, which was about maybe $10,000 total, and let's leave for 2 years and travel around the world. My parents basically looked at me, thought I was crazy. Everyone I knew thought I was crazy, but once I had it in my brain, I wanted to do something. It was going to get done. And I told my friend I had to leave. She's going to have to find another person to run that front of her catering business. And we were going to take off, and we were going to travel the world. So we did that. We went to, I don't think we made it quite 2 years. We ran out of money. We made it for 18 months. So not far off. But we left. We started in Europe, and we traveled. We saw 26 countries in those months. And my goal is that I wanted to learn to cook from just people that I would meet. I wanted to go into people's homes. I wanted to just learn whatever the recipes were from that culture. I had never really traveled globally before that age. So I was 28 when we left, almost 30 when we returned. And when we came back from the trip, it was incredible. If I can't get one thing across to you today, if you haven't traveled, start. It changes your world. It changes everything about the way you look at everything. So I got back from this trip, which was incredible. And I remember the day I was sitting in my apartment in my living room, and I had all of these recipes, that I had gathered on toilet paper, napkins, odd pieces of paper around me. And I just suddenly noticed that all of these recipes I had one thing in common. 90% of them were soup recipes. And a light bulb went off, and I was like, that's it. I'm going to make soup. This is what I've learned on this trip. And I was so excited. I went right to my family. I told them, I found what I'm going to do. I'm going to make soup. And there was a silence. And I remember my dad saying, 90 degrees most of the time in Atlanta, or like today, it's like 80 degrees outside in February. Are you sure this is what you wanted to do? And I, just being who, I decided this was it. I was going to make soup. So this was the next part of my journey. Of course, again, I had no real experience. I'd had this one little business that I sort of fudged together, but this was going to be the next piece. I was going to have to find a space with a lease. I was going to have to learn, really how to hire people, because I was probably going to need more than just me coming in at 4:30 and my friend. I was going to have to learn about purchasing and working with purveyors on a much bigger scale. And that, again, was in my head. No experience. I'm up for the challenge. Let's do this. So one day, I rented this commercial kitchen not far from here, and I had kept a newsletter going on my trip around the world of those customers I had made from Jenny's Marketplace, sort of telling them what I was up to with a recipe or two. And then when I got this little commercial kitchen, I would send out notes to everyone by email saying, I'm making soup. Who wants a delivery of soup? And little by little, I started getting these orders in, and every week I was delivering, hundreds of quarts of soup to people. I was even surprised myself, and this was in summer, in the middle of summer. So I was driving down Peachtree one day in Buckhead, and I happened to pass by my space that I originally had before for those 3 years, and the whole space was available and for rent. And that to me was the sign. So I rented that space. Has anyone ever been to Super Jenny? Now that I'm talking about all this? So, okay, there's a lot of people that haven't been there. You need to go, first of all. But so this, if you've been to there was this tiny little space on this little street in Buckhead, and that's where the original Super Jenny, so I moved into that space. I got out that same bucket of yellow paint that I had from the prior years, painted the walls. I got pictures of all my family and my community, slapped them up on the walls, and we were up and running and in business. So that, I think I opened in 1999. We're coming up on 20 years next year of doing it. We've gone, we started with me, one employee plus one, and we've grown to 4 Super Jennies right now. We've got 46 employees. I think we went from maybe making $20,000 a year to over a $5 million business. In those, up to this year. And it's been really quite an incredible experience of not having any experience in learning my way to what I've been doing. So Super Jenny's had many incarnations. If you've sort of followed our journey at all, you'll know that we opened a cafe called Cafe Jonah. It was open for 5 years. It was this fantastic coffee shop in Buckhead. The neighborhood in Buckhead is changing, so when it was time for that 5-year lease to come up, the woman who owned the house sold it. And so we couldn't renew that lease in this very special place. So sometimes I learned that, my business, it's going to have to change, or it's not going to work out, and it's going to have to close. So that's one thing that happened along our journey. We also opened a juice bar / a vegan restaurant in Buckhead, and I learned along the way that was something I had no experience in. And as we did it for the 3 years it was open, I started to realize, wow, this is what organics cost. It's really hard to find someone who wants to juice vegetables and fruit for 18 hours a day. So little lessons I learned along the way, and then that was another, for me, I think at the time I looked at it as a failure of like, oh, this isn't going to work out, but it was just making a smart business decision. At the end of that lease, that building was being bought, and they were tripling the rents, and I had to say, you know what, this then isn't the right space for the juice bar, and let that go. So now, at the present day, we've got 4 locations. They're all great versions of what we do. And it's really went back to my original goal and vision of I wanted to create this place of community. If you come to a Super Jenny, you know that you're going to get several things. You're going to get great, fresh food. The menu changes every day. We use a lot of local food, a lot of organics. You're going to be served by people that actually care about you and how you're doing that day. If you come there often, they usually know your name, they know their food preferences, and you're going to be in an environment where we encourage you to actually get off your cell phone and sit down and have a meal together, which is obviously not easy to do. Everyone is in this digital age right now. It is really hard to disconnect. And I even see, I'm looking out, everyone's got their computer open, and it's hard, isn't it, to just close it and to see what is going on around you. So that is the space sort of I wanted to create in the restaurants and what my overall goal is every day when I'm doing business. The next piece is about, so we have these restaurants up and running. And then about a year ago, we meet every year, my whole team and I, and we talk about our vision, what is our vision for the next year? And I realized a year ago, when you're in the restaurant business, you get asked to do a lot of things and donate a lot of things for free. And I thought, I really want to I feel like I'm not involved in the community enough every day. I really want to do something more. I feel our staff, we're becoming, we've been around for a while, we're not as engaged as we should be. What can we do every day to give back to the community and to bring us all back together to our vision and what our focus is? And so I threw it out there to everyone. You know what? I want to start a nonprofit. And everyone stopped like they do every time I have one of my crazy ideas and okay, what does that mean? What is that? What are we going to have to undertake to start this? I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what a nonprofit entails. I just know that I want to do more in my business. So we started something called the Zadie Project. And I'll tell you a little bit about Zadie is the Yiddish word for grandfather. So my dad, who's 90 and incredible right now, was a Zadie in our family. And he gave me my very first soup recipe and still our most popular to this day, which is my dad's turkey chili. So I knew that I wanted to do something with that and sort of have a name for a legacy for my father of being this person that basically helped me start and get me excited about the soup business. So the Zadie Project has a couple initiatives. The first thing is that every time someone comes to one of our restaurants as a customer and you buy turkey chili, we take that money that it costs to make turkey chili and we donated it back to the Zadie Project. So as our customers being involved, every time that they buy some soup, some chili, they know that they're helping the community. And then we take that money plus any other donations and anything we can find, and we grow food, we turn it into soup, and now we donate it back to the community. We've partnered with after-school organizations, mostly Title I schools that have after-school programs, for them to have a dinner to take home. So it's been a great initiative. We started it a year ago. So when I first started a nonprofit, I didn't know anything. I didn't know that you needed a board to have a nonprofit. I just thought, okay, I'll do it. I'll do everything, and I'll get some people to help me make the soup. So we learned what it would take to have a board, what you have to do tax-wise, just through asking questions and accepting help from other people. So that the Zadie Project has two initiatives. We serve the immediate need of the community by making and giving out delicious, nutritious soups to people who need it. And then the second piece is at our Westside location, which isn't far from here, so you need to go visit. We started a farm. We noticed this piece of land behind our restaurant, and I just asked my landlord one day, would you be willing to donate us this land for the duration of my lease, for as long as I'm here, for us to start a farm on? And luckily, she said, sure. Why not? I'm not using it right now. She could take it back from me, but we started this farm and we started growing food. We have one employee of our nonprofit, which is the farmer, and he is there, 24/7 growing vegetables that go into the soups that we donate to the community. Recently, we just bought a school bus, and we're trying to partner with those same after-school organizations and bring people to us and teach them about the importance of, real food and nutrition and why why it's so important to eat, a real food as opposed to getting your $1 cheeseburger at McDonald's. And that has become such a much bigger mission for Super Jenny and what we want to do every day. So it's made me really excited and sort of re-engaged. I've been doing this for 20 years now at Super Jenny, and every year as an entrepreneur, I feel like I want to push myself that extra distance. What can I do to be better? What can I do to get more help? Who's going to inspire me to go even farther in what I'm doing? So that's a little bit I wanted to tell you my story about me. I would give you probably 4 pieces of advice if you want to be an entrepreneur and if you're just starting out. One that someone told me, always ask for help. I'm a pretty independent Aries that didn't like to ask for help in my 20s. And if you could learn that lesson early on, if you have an idea or you need help, is to ask for help. To get people, I call them my team of geniuses around me that can help me, do what's important. The second thing is I learned to put my hand up to the naysayers, because there will always be people that tell you that you're doing the wrong thing. And, this is a ridiculous idea. You want to make soup. It's 80 degrees outside. That's really stupid. If you know what your heart is and what it says, you have to be able to not listen to those people. The third thing is to travel. That you need to travel. Get out of this country, get out of this state, whatever that means to you. Go and find other cultures, see what other people are doing, be inspired by other people. And it's really been helpful for me to, find a mentor, someone that doesn't mind answering those hard questions for you, and just help you, guide you along your path. And I know I had a fourth one, but now I forgot it. It's, to think big. Oh, my fourth one is everyone talks about their passion. And what are you passionate about? Follow your passion, follow your bliss. And that is only part of it. You need to find your passion, and then you need to find your plan of how you're going to execute it. And that to me has been very important. I'm very passionate about a lot of things, but if I don't have my list and my vision of how I'm going to accomplish those things, my passion, it doesn't really mean much. I need to know how I'm going to get it, how I'm going to execute it. So those are my 4 points of advice I'd love to give you. As this person, I'm an entrepreneur that had no experience in the beginning. I'm finally beginning to believe after 20 years, I actually do have a little bit of experience now. But I really only think I have a little bit. I have so much more to learn. And if you can sort of look at your life and start really early, now in your 20s, asking those questions, I think that you will be way ahead of the game than where I was when I was at your age. So now I guess I want to ask you if anyone has any questions. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Good.
I have a question about, you expand to different places.
Yeah.
So, what are steps that you took to how did you decide to expand your business to other towns, and what are logistics that you have to think about?
That's a great question. So the first Super Jenny, the original was there for 10 years before I ever even entertained opening another business. It was like a handful by itself. And then I was very picky. I'm never a person motivated by money. So I knew if I was going to open something else, I had to be in a space where I loved it, or a neighborhood, or feel something from the location. And I wasn't seeing anything. And then all of a sudden, I saw this space over on the Westside, and I thought, you know what? And someone else was occupying it. And I thought, you know what? I love this because there's parking and there's this open space. Or then I saw where we are in Decatur, and something just spoke to me, and it's a very eccentric and a very unconventional way of probably doing business, because I could certainly get details from a realtor and all this, but I just really went from my instinct of where I wanted to be, where I knew that I was a very hands-on business owner, where I could get to every day or every other day. And that's sort of how we organically started to expand. And then just to give you an example, this is the first year I've been like, you know what? My dream is to have a soup shop on the side of a ski slope or in a mountain town or somewhere where it's actually cold year round. And I've talked about it for a year, and I finally Sunday am flying to Boulder to go, check it out, because I'll never know until I really see it for myself. So for me, it's really just been my gut and following my gut.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think being an actor has helped you become an entrepreneur?
Do I think I definitely think the two can be really related, because, in the restaurant business, I find drama and the restaurant business are very similar. So yes, I think it's made me more outgoing in a certain sense. And been a little more fearless, although I have plenty of fear. Everyone has plenty of fear, but I just have that I'm going to do it anyway attitude. But I don't know, because I think when I'm not doing things like this or I'm not in the restaurant, I'm a pretty big introvert. And, acting, you're pretending you're somebody else.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of
Improvising.
Yeah, yes. That probably helps. And I'm not very easily rattled. Which, and if you're on stage and you drop your line or something, you have to figure out a way to keep going. So it probably, without me even knowing, I'm sure it's helped me a lot being an entrepreneur, because you really have to go with the flow. And I can't talk about a lot of other businesses, but I know mine, that things happen every day, which might just throw someone else way off course. And it's like I expect it. And it's a good challenge for me. Anyone else?
Hey, one of the things that you said is you're a very hands-on business owner. As you guys are constantly growing, how do you make sure that you constantly reach out for help and manage all of the new challenges that arise, I guess?
I don't. I do everything myself. I don't trust anyone. No, that's a great question, because it really took me a long time to get that team together. And I really, I sort of put it out there again in the universe of what I thought I needed, and they magically showed up. And as we grew from one location to two, like I really could sort of handle by myself and sort of do management, and I thought I could. Well, I'm sure I wasn't doing it well. But then I started to look and realize, you know what? We need a general manager. And I found that. How can I cook all the food but then go visit all the restaurants? We needed an executive chef. So I did. As we grow, and we're still doing that now, we do it sort of until we all feel as a group, you know what? This is getting to be too much for us. And then I've just gotten also a lot smarter about, as we expand, I talk to people more about really what those costs are. But way back in the beginning, I saw there was a stove in there, and I was like, great, I can slap some paint on the wall. We're open. And as we've matured and grown, and we are opening more locations, I ask more questions and get a better team in place. But there's one thing I know that I'm not. I'm not going to franchise. We've been approached many times to franchise Super Jenny, and I'm sure maybe I could retire right now, but I'm not. That just was never my dream. So I'm always going to be part of it. And what my legacy is, my son, who has no interest. I have one son in the restaurant business, or food for that matter, and I know that he's probably not going to be interested. So I'm sort of planning now. Really, what is going to happen when I'm not here? Is it just the end, or do I want to make a plan for that future? And that's what I'm working on now. But yes, for me, it's always going to be small. And if I do open in Boulder, Colorado, it will be because I'm going to go there several times a year to be part of it. Yes. On back there. Okay.
Hi. So what were your kind of your strategies when you first started out, in terms of spreading the word and kind of advertising your business? How did you start from there, and then what motivated you to open more franchises?
That makes me laugh, because my strategies are probably the same 20 years later, except I'm learning. I'm learning about social media. I'm 50 years old. I'm a lot older than you guys, so all of this is new to me with social media. But back in the beginning, luckily I'm a native of Atlanta, so I didn't really grow up here, but I'm from here, so I had my family. And in the beginning, it was me making flyers and making those yard signs that I'd run around at night, and put them on the street, all around the street, saying that we were open and where we were. Handing out flyers, sending emails to people, and very basic grassroots marketing. Another thing we did way back for the first 10 years, just I'll tell you too, is I really ran things my own way. I decided that I wanted to close for a month every summer, because that's what the Europeans did. So I wanted to do that. So I had to figure out a way that we could close for the month of August and then reintroduce people that we were back open. So it reminded me of what I used to do. Is I used to run around with, I'm sure some of you had eaten at Murphy's restaurant in Virginia Highlands. So Tom Murphy is definitely my major mentor. And he would help me and go around Buckhead with these yard signs and put them all over so people would know that we were back open. But really, 20 years later, it's almost the same thing. I find that we get the most attention when I'm constantly sending out, this is what's going on in the restaurant this week, or being on social media. I'm learning about Instagram, which is all new to me, and having videos and food pictures of our food. We've never done any traditional advertising, never advertised in a magazine or on the radio or anything. I never really had that kind of money that I wanted to spend on that. And just coming up with out-of-the-box, crazy ideas for my team to try, run contests with them, trying to get more business. And that just continues. That sort of engages our employees in the process of how we can get more business.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. So when I was a freshman, I went to a career fair, and they said we don't hire freshmen. So my point of this question is, you said no experience is necessary, but the thing is that now, maybe 20 years back, that would be okay, but now in this day and age, all jobs are very competitive, and from a human resource standpoint, it doesn't make sense to hire someone who doesn't have any experience, because people people with experience would be more preferable. But my question is, how do you what is your advice on on people who don't have any experience to do something new? Because because we're in a very competitive age where jobs are very competitive, and people, if you want a certain job, there will always be people who will be more likely to get the job because they're a more competitive candidate.
My personal advice is that you have to find a way. Find a way that is not traditional and out of the box. At my age now, I've seen so many people speak on this subject, so many successful people. I'm taking a course right now with Jesse Itzler. So I don't know if anyone's heard of him. He wrote this book, Living with a Seal, but he's also known for being married to Sarah Blakely, who started Spanx. And he's teaching this class all about entrepreneurialism and how to get what it is that you want. And I've listened to him speak, and all of these speakers in my lifetime, and what they talk about, their success is because they weren't afraid they went for the face-to-face. They didn't just send in their resume. They found a way to show, if you really want that job, to show that person that you're the person for the job. When I'm hiring, I was looking for a chef for our cafe that we open. And I had many qualified people send me just a regular resume. And then this girl hand-delivered this piece of art that had the 10 reasons of why I should hire her. Didn't say anything about her experience. I had no idea if she could cook or not. But I looked at that. She found my address somehow. She's probably a stalker, I don't know. But she found my address and delivered it to me. And she's the one that ended up being our chef for 5 years. So every time that I'm thinking in my tiny world of hiring, I'm looking for what's different. And I think it really goes for any career you have. When I'm listening to Sarah Blakely talk about how she got her design of Spanx into, a department store, it was by doing something that person didn't expect. And so I don't know if that helps you at all, but it's, and we do hire freshmen. So if you want a job, come and talk to me. And even if someone says no to you, it's push it. So tell me why. and just make them think a little, because people like that are hiring, we see a bazillion people or hear from so many people. I get resumes left and right, people wanting to be chefs or managers, but you're looking for someone that sticks out and someone who actually, might get what the vision is of what you're trying to create. Does that make sense a little bit?
I've got a question. I can't believe nobody's asked it yet. So what makes a good soup? I mean, what's the secret to having a soup you can market?
What makes a great soup?
Is there a formula of ratios and that sort of thing?
Well, it's ratios, but no. I would say, and I teach a lot of cooking classes, so I'm always trying. I'm terrible with recipes. I want to teach like just how you build. A good soup starts with carrot, celery, and onion, garlic, and it's about building the formula from there. So no, there's no perfect way to make a good soup, but if you know the steps, it's really hard to mess up. And it takes, time. It's good soup to me is about a lot of love, because chopping vegetables takes a lot of time. So you really love it.
Hi, I got a question.
Yeah.
Firstly, thanks for the speech. It's really great. Thank you. So I noticed you're an entrepreneur as well as you have a career in NGO. But I'm just curious, like, how did the dual character influence each other? And especially, what do you think being an entrepreneur, what difference do you think being an entrepreneur makes comparing to the full-time NGO people?
The full-time what?
NGO.
NGO?
Nonprofit.
Oh, I'm like, see, I don't even know what that means.
Sorry.
You know what? What I'm learning about the nonprofit, it is like definitely starting an entirely new business. It is much more work than I thought. I need much more help than I need. But it's completely fulfilling, because even we're doing that on this very small level. Our goal is to provide 1,000 quarts of soup a week, which to me is a lot, but maybe in the world of nonprofits it might be very small. 1,000 quarts a week to kids in need of this soup. But it takes so many different pieces and so many different people to make that happen. But when I see it, it's completely rewarding in a different way from being an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur really feeds my creative spirit, because that was my first love, is theater, and I'm a creative at heart, so I love that piece of it. The nonprofit to me is totally different, because I can see an actual difference. We've paired with some schools where they're doing metrics with the after-school programs and the kids, and the difference from before that the Title I programs were offered, and the difference, a semester later with getting like real nutrition, and you can see that their grades go up. So it's a whole different kind of rewarding to me to have the nonprofit, but it's twice as much work probably. And so I'll really, as that continues, I just need we need a lot of help, which I'm not afraid to ask for anymore.
My question had to do with the Zadie Project, and a lot of companies have corporate responsibility and stuff, but they don't necessarily go and start a whole new nonprofit. And so I'm sort of interested in this whole food insecurity arena and what Zadie does, sort of what it does. Could it be a standalone, or is it always going to be connected to Super Jenny's? And are you going to grow it beyond the 1,000, soups going to the kids in terms of cooking, education, other kinds of things that build capacity to create your own nourishment?
That's actually a great conversation that we've been having in our board meetings, because, I only see what's in front of me, and I want to do the soup now and, name it after my dad, and this, that's very important to me of what's happening now. But yes, absolutely, what's going to happen in the future? There is a time, I heard someone say in a quote a couple weeks ago about if everyone could just adopt their own city. and just be responsible for your own city, just volunteering, that's it, how things could change that easily. And that's what I want to do. I wanted to start with just Atlanta, and just even on the west side, where our west side location is, there's like 14 Title I schools over there, where I met with teachers, and the kids are literally not getting a meal unless they're at school, getting their school lunch. So to me, that's what I wanted, is to start small. But we have that, yes, we could have done it as our own corporate responsibility of Super Jenny, because we're the biggest funder. We're donating that money back from the turkey chili, but it really only covers a portion of what it costs to do that, because you've got to make the soup. Super Jenny probably covers the cost of actually making the soup for the nonprofit, but then we've got a farmer, we've got all the disposable containers, we've got delivering it in our van that we had to purchase, to deliver it, and the gas. So that's what, and I wanted something where we can involve the community. So we have our corporate responsibility, but then there's opportunity for outside people to say, like, I want to get involved. And that's why I wanted to expand it and not just have it be the corporate responsibility of Super Jenny. I'm hoping as it grows that outside people are like, you know what, I see that you're making a change and a difference. How can we get involved? And so that's my hope for the future, is that it's going to grow. But if it doesn't, and all we do is donate 1,000 quarts a week, I will be happy with that as well. So that's where we are today. And fortunately, I have people on the board that are much more forward thinkers than me, and looking out and looking at the money, and I've asked for that help to help us guide, like, what will happen next. Awesome, thank you. Anyone else?
I went on Instagram and realized you have 4 accounts, each for one of your locations, and I was wondering why that is. Do you still have different menus, or is it just part of the community approach?
Oh, for like social media accounts?
Yes.
Yes, it is. How Super Jenny works is, so I create the recipes and menu, and then each store has its own chef, and they, as long as they're staying within my vision, they can do their spin on that menu. They might have something extra they need to use up, so they can go off it a little bit. So we do have the 4 different accounts, and then I also try to get the staff involved, so they can go on there and publicize what's going on. They can talk about themselves. I really don't, I wanted it to be like a piece of, each store has its own identity, and they're all really different in their look. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you talk some more about the end of year vision meeting that you mentioned with all the staff, and what kind of atmosphere you try to create for that meeting, and what you do to create that atmosphere?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Every year we take a day and we close all the stores, and it's mandatory that all the employees, the managers, everyone, we meet in one place. It's usually not in one of our stores. I try to make it someplace fun where we're going to have a meal and have this day-long meeting. And I like to call it a vision session, which I've learned from my mentors. There's a great company in Michigan called Zingerman's. Have you heard? Zingerman's? But yeah, so I've gone to many seminars there and many learning sessions of how to do great customer service, inspire your team. So we all get together, in this place, and we talk about the past year. We first go through all the financials, which is of my least interest, but we talk about all the financials and money. We talk about how everyone's doing in each store, what the clientele is like, what they're looking for. And then we go through a period of time which we call a visioning hour, and everyone pulls out their notebook, and I want everyone to write a 1-year out vision, not only for the store of how they see themselves in the company and what they see for their company, but for themselves, a separate one. So they could spend like 30 minutes on each, so they can share it or they can not share it. And so everyone does that, and we just write about, where, and my idea of visioning, which I learned from Zingerman's, is you talk about it a year out like it's already happened. It's already happened. So this time, as of next February of this year, I've already done my first TED Talk. It's going through and literally talking about every aspect of your life or your business and visioning it a year out. And then we talk about that, and then anyone who wants to share it, We share it. We sort of, every year, we try to redefine our mission statement that we have on the wall of every restaurant. If we need to change that at all, how's it looking? And that's what that meeting is coming together to do. And then we just share a meal and everyone gets paid for the day and goes home. Anybody else?
As a restaurant owner, I was just curious about your thoughts on food reviewing websites like Yelp and if you've seen it affect your business in any way.
Oh my God, I hate looking at those so much. Yes. No, I think they're great. I mean, I go to Yelp when I'm looking, if I want to see something. If you're a restaurant owner, oh my God, it is so horrible to look on Yelp. And I really try not to do it, but when I can't sleep sometimes in the middle of the night, I'm Yelping and then if I see a bad one, I'm like texting the managers and the chefs and all that. It's what it is. It's the age we're in. I believe in open book, all transparency, all of it. So the only thing I don't love about Yelp, you have to like join it, I guess, to be able to comment or to write something back. So I haven't done that yet, but it's really sad when someone might put this written something terrible that could have easily been fixed for them, or someone had a bad day and they just like writing a terrible review. I mean, it's not easy to read, but I think it's necessary. And I think that restaurateurs, it's our responsibility to expect that. And I want it to be there. I like when, people, and I take feedback from it. Some people, I'm sure you've read Yelp reviews that are just like scathing, and it's sort of like, really? Did you have to go that far? I mean, it's people's livelihood that you're commenting on. But when people have a good constructive criticism, I'm on it, and I appreciate it. Is that it? Oh, we've got another one.
Hey, was there ever a point where you had financial issues, like Super Jenny had financial issues, and like what steps did you take to solve it?
I went to prison now. Yes, I would say in the beginning, when I first opened Super Jenny, I mean, luckily I have an attorney father. Like, I'm not getting away with anything. But in the very beginning, yes, I had some financial issues because I got behind on my sales tax. And I just thought, I'll pay that, next month or the month. I didn't have someone, my team of geniuses, I didn't have an accountant or someone doing my books for me. And I was trying to do it all. And it wasn't like I didn't have the money. I just didn't have the time to sit down and write a check. So yes, I would say my first year of business was my toughest. And I got way behind in taxes and then got lots of penalties from the IRS because I was so far behind. And that probably put me definitely in a hole for a year. So that's probably the only time. I definitely do everything. I'm not one of the people they say you're supposed to have, money, your first 1 year, or, I never looked at it that way. I never say, okay, I had enough money for a year to survive in this business. That's just not the way my brain works. Not that I wouldn't recommend it. You should have that much money. But I wasn't one of those people, but I became smarter about like, okay, what can we really afford? We can't really afford these nice light fixtures. Okay, we'll just use a light bulb. I just did everything like in moderation because what I wanted to do was serve food and serve the community. It didn't need to be fancy. He's back.
How the heck do you make soup profitable in a 90-degree weather with other competing restaurants that sell food cheaper?
Well, first of all, we have cold soup. We have lots of salads. We expanded our menu, but I think that I really believe we're successful because of our enthusiasm and because we are into it, and we're excited about what we do. Fortunately, part of the year, it isn't anytime it's rainy or cold, but I can definitely see a difference in business and the numbers when it's colder, when it's rainy. Even if it's this hot out and it's gray, it's a better soup day. But we sort of flow with the times, and we changed our menu to include a lot more salads. And we're even actually working on right now, our logo says Super Jenny, and I'm like, it's everyone's perception. Can we slap like a salad on there somewhere, on the logo? Like, we're open to constantly changing with the times and what's going to make it work. And I think that any entrepreneur, you can see it your way, but then you have to sort of be open to what can make it better. I'm not always right either. Is that everything? Oh, we got one there.
Thank you. Okay, so I love soup every season. Thanks for being here. You said that you did not want to be a franchise and that you've been approached by multiple bigger corporations. Can you speak a little bit about that? Is it based on the offer, or is it just kind of one of your core principles that you will never ever be acquired?
I think it is really one of my core principles, because I'm just not motivated by money. I mean, I like money. I like to travel, which I do a lot. I like to eat out, but my life in a lot of senses is small. I live in a small home. I don't drive a fancy car. I know what's important to me. So I would say it's one of my core principles, and that my vision is not to see a Super Jenny on every corner. My vision is to be able to walk into a Super Jenny and know the customers. And I love, my parents divorced when I was 7 or 8. I moved to Los Angeles with my mother, sort of grew up there, went to boarding school, went to college away. And since I've been back in Atlanta for the past 20 years, I just realized to me, what that meant to me, and community, and how my goal was to create something in Atlanta that was always just this sort of weird little funky place. Even as these big corporations are moving in, and there's so much restaurant, and you talked about competition, I want to be this weird little bohemian place that is successful, for as long as I can. So that I would go back to saying it's just my core principle.
I have a question.
Yes.
As a company that kind of serves to, instill this sense of community and kind of family, do you feel a lot of pressure to create any customer loyalty programs, or I know customers can sometimes kind of demand that almost?
I don't feel pressure. We do. We still have the old-fashioned punch card, and I know you can now probably do everything on your phone, and that's like but I believe in customer loyalty, and I've also, even the people that work for me, the front of the house people, they're empowered to do what they need to do. They want to give you a free lunch because you come every day and it's your birthday. They can do that, and I definitely don't feel pressured by it, but I think it's worth it. If you want to retain your customer base, which we do, you want to do things that make them happy. And I much prefer customer loyalty rather than giving a discount to new customers. I want to take care of the people that I already have. The people that come in. So if it's a new customer that comes in, maybe next time, then they're a loyal customer, and I'm going to take care of those people. Does that answer that? Yeah. Okay, awesome.
The last question.
I mean, it all sounds so simple, you just got to make soup, sell it, get people to buy it. But I sense that there's a lot more deeper stuff going on, and so I'd like to know, what are your sustainability principles in terms of how do you reduce waste while not, creating, while having healthy, tasteful food? How do you deal with, composting and, so what are the sustainability principles in dealing with the life cycle of the products that, you purchase, and how do you deal with them on the other end?
Well, all of that is really important, and it goes back to you saying, how do you make soups and it's cheaper somewhere else? And that, to me, is very important. We started from the beginning. We were one of the first people in Atlanta. We're part of the zero waste zone in restaurants, where we compost, we recycle, we have much less refrigeration and freezer space because we want daily delivery and fresh product all the time. So, we're just doing whatever we have to do to reduce that footprint and be involved in that. But all of those things are expensive. Like the city doesn't pay, composting basically is you're saving all your scraps, right? And that's going to be turned into a healthier soil. Well, we have to pay for the people to come pick up those scraps. And then not only that, we buy it back as the soil for our farm. So there's no cheap way around it. We compost ourselves as well, but it's this whole cycle. So if you want to, it's really hard, especially as you're a student, when you're a student, understanding why prices are so high for certain foods, or if you go somewhere and it's expensive, but it costs much more than you would imagine for organic food until it becomes much more the norm, and it's heading that direction. Much more organics, much more local growers, but it just costs more to do business. So that my goal, my commitment is to keep all those things in place, like composting and recycling, and give in the Zadie Project and giving back. But that does come at a price. And not on top of that, I'm for the $15 an hour rule. Starting your employees at a fair wage. So yeah, I'm sorry, bleeding heart liberal up here. So it just depends what your principles are, but we're committed to that and being local. So I'll say thank you. Thanks for supporting local business, you guys. Thank you.